The tremor before the storm. When humans get angry, the universe trembles. This old saying seemed almost prophetic when the Crone raiding fleet, a formidable force known for their ruthless conquests, set their sights on Earth. The Crones, with their immense firepower and advanced technology, believed they were on the brink of an easy victory. They charged their weapons and pointed them towards the blue planet, convinced it was merely a formality before their domination. Little did they know, their arrival had not gone unnoticed. Earth's defense systems had long been upgraded, anticipating threats from beyond the stars. The arrival of the Crone fleet was detected long before they made their approach, and preparations were already underway to confront the impending threat. Deep within a hidden command center, Admiral Kate Reynolds surveyed the tactical displays with a steely gaze. She had faced many challenges in her career, but the Crone fleet was unlike any other enemy she had encountered. The Crones had a reputation for leaving devastation in their wake, and their current target was Earth itself. "We've got a full-scale invasion on our hands," Reynolds said, her voice steady but her eyes betraying her concern. "They're moving in fast." Her second-in-command, Commander Liam Brooks, nodded, his expression grim. "Our outer defenses are holding, but they're not going to last long against that kind of firepower. We need to act now if we want any chance of stopping them." Reynolds nodded, her mind racing through the strategic options. The Crones were known for their brutal efficiency and overwhelming strength, but humanity had always relied on its ingenuity and determination. This was no different. She activated a secure communication link to the various human forces stationed around the globe. "Attention all units," Reynolds' voice crackled through the intercom. "The Crone fleet has engaged our outer defenses. Prepare for immediate deployment. We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for the future of humanity. Make every shot count." Across the globe, the response was swift. Military units, once scattered and diverse, began to coalesce into a formidable fighting force. From the dense urban sprawls to the remote outposts, humanity's might was about to be unleashed in ways that the Crones had not anticipated. Back in space, the Crone fleet moved with relentless precision. Their ships, sleek and menacing, cut through the void as they prepared to deliver the final blow to Earth. The Crone commander, an imposing figure named Zorak, surveyed the approaching planet with a cold, calculating gaze. He was confident in their superiority, certain that this campaign would be a mere formality. However, as the Crones closed in, they encountered unexpected resistance. The initial contact was met with a barrage of human countermeasures, a testament to Earth's preparation. The Crone fleet's advance slowed as Earth's defensive forces began to engage, using every resource and tactic at their disposal. Admiral Reynolds watched the battle unfold from her command center, her mind constantly shifting between tactical assessments and strategic planning. The Crone fleet was powerful, but humanity had a few tricks up its sleeve. The defensive measures they had prepared were proving effective, but the real test was yet to come. On the ground, the situation was equally tense. The world's major cities were on high alert as the threat from space loomed ever closer. Governments and military leaders coordinated efforts to protect their populations, deploying ground-based defenses and preparing for potential ground invasions. In a secluded laboratory hidden beneath the surface of a mountain, Dr. Elaine Carter, a brilliant scientist, worked tirelessly on a project that could turn the tide of the conflict. Her focus was on a revolutionary energy shield technology that could potentially neutralize the Crone fleet's weapons. Come on, Carter muttered to herself, her fingers flying over the controls. "We're running out of time." The energy shield, once operational, would be a game-changer. But the technology was still in its experimental stages, and there was no guarantee it would hold up under real combat conditions. Despite the risks, Carter knew it was humanity's best hope. As the Crone fleet pressed forward, the battle for Earth intensified. The sky above the planet was filled with the dazzling lights of laser fire and explosions as human forces fought valiantly against the invaders. The ground beneath trembled with the impact of aerial assaults and the roar of combat. Admiral Reynolds continued to issue orders, her tactical acumen guiding humanity's response. Despite the mounting pressure, she remained resolute, driven by the knowledge that the survival of Earth depended on their ability to push back against the Crone onslaught. In the heart of the chaos, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The Crones had underestimated the resilience and ingenuity of Earth's defenders. As the battle raged on, it became clear that this was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight to reclaim their place in the universe and prove that humanity was far from being a defeated species. The unseen weapon. The Crone fleet had underestimated Earth's resolve and resourcefulness. As the battle progressed, the humans showcased an unexpected ferocity. Despite the overwhelming firepower of the invaders, Earth's defenders were holding their ground with an ingenuity that caught the Crones off guard. In the command center, Admiral Reynolds and her team were racing against time. The Crones had begun to adapt to their defensive strategies, and their attacks were growing more coordinated and intense. Reynolds knew that maintaining the status quo was no longer enough. They needed a decisive countermeasure. "We need to hit them where it hurts," Reynolds said, her voice tight with determination. "We've got to disrupt their command and control systems. If we can break their coordination, we might just turn the tide." Commander Brooks nodded in agreement. "We have a prototype satellite that could interfere with their communications. It's not fully tested, but it might be our best shot." The satellite, codenamed Prometheus, was designed to create a communications blackout for enemy forces. It was a risky move, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Reynolds authorized the deployment, and the satellite was launched from a remote facility. It took hours to reach its designated orbit, and every moment was fraught with tension. Meanwhile, Dr. Elaine Carter's energy shield project was nearing completion. The shield's core was finally operational, but the true test would come once it was activated in the field. Carter and her team worked around the clock, making final adjustments and preparing for a live test. "We're almost there," Carter said, sweat beading on her forehead as she worked. "We just need to integrate the final components and conduct a quick test run." Back in space, the Crone fleet was beginning to feel the effects of Prometheus. Their communication channels were becoming erratic, with data losses and signal disruptions creating confusion among their ranks. Commander Zorak, the Crone leader, was becoming increasingly frustrated. "Report," Zorak demanded as he paced his command bridge. "What is causing these communication issues?" An officer hesitated before responding. "We're experiencing widespread interference, Commander. It appears to be originating from a new satellite." Zorak's eyes narrowed in anger. "Find and destroy that satellite immediately. We cannot afford this disruption." As the Crones scrambled to locate and neutralize the Prometheus satellite, the energy shield project on Earth was ready for its first live test. Carter and her team initiated the activation sequence, and a shimmering barrier of energy enveloped a section of the Earth's atmosphere. The shield was designed to deflect and absorb energy-based attacks, providing a crucial defensive layer against the Crone fleet's weapons. "We've got it," Carter shouted as the shield came online. "Let's see how it holds up." Moments later, the shield was put to the test as the Crone fleet unleashed a barrage of energy weapons. The impact on the shield was immediate and dramatic. The energy bolts collided with the shield's surface, creating brilliant flashes of light. To everyone's relief, the shield absorbed and deflected the energy, holding firm against the onslaught. Admiral Reynolds watched the readouts with a mixture of hope and anxiety. The energy shield was working, but its performance under sustained attack remained uncertain. She issued orders to increase the shield's coverage, expanding the protective barrier over key strategic areas. On the battlefield, the disruption caused by Prometheus began to have a noticeable effect. The Crone fleet's attacks became more disorganized, and their advanced tactics faltered. Earth's defenders seized the opportunity, launching counterattacks with renewed vigor. The tide of battle began to shift, and the Crones faced an unexpected resistance. In the command center, Reynolds and Brooks watched the battle unfold on the screens. The disruption in Crone communications and the effectiveness of the energy shield were proving to be game changers. However, Reynolds knew that the Crones would not give up easily. They would adapt and retaliate, and humanity needed to be prepared for the next phase of the conflict. "We've gained some ground," Reynolds said, her voice filled with cautious optimism. "But we need to stay vigilant. The Crones won't be down for long." The battle was far from over. As the Crone fleet struggled to regain control, Admiral Reynolds and her team prepared for the next wave of attacks. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, but humanity had shown that it could stand toe-to-toe with even the most formidable adversaries. The Crones had made a grave mistake in underestimating their opponents, and Earth's defenders were poised to turn the conflict into a fight for survival that would resonate across the stars. A glimmer of hope. The conflict between Earth and the Crones had escalated to a fever pitch. With the communication disruption and the new energy shield in place, the humans had gained a significant advantage. However, both sides were preparing for the next phase of the war, and the stakes were higher than ever. Admiral Reynolds and her command team were working tirelessly to analyze the battle data and strategize their next move. The Prometheus satellite had caused significant disruption, but it was only a temporary solution. They needed a long-term strategy to secure their position and ensure their survival. "We've fought ourselves some time, but we can't rest on our laurels," Reynolds said, her eyes scanning the holographic battlefield map. "We need to press our advantage and keep the pressure on the Crones." Commander Brooks, who had been analyzing the Crone fleet's movements, spoke up. "The Crones are reorganizing. They're trying to adapt to our tactics and overcome the disruption caused by Prometheus. We need to stay ahead of their adaptations." Dr. Elaine Carter, still overseeing the Energy Shield project, was also deep in thought. "The shield is holding up well, but we need to ensure its stability under prolonged stress. We've been working on a second-generation shield with improved capabilities. It could be a game changer if we can get it operational." Reynolds nodded in agreement. "We need to prioritize a second-generation shield. It could give us the edge we need. In the meantime, let's ramp up our offensive operations. We need to keep the Crones on the defensive and prevent them from regrouping." As Earth's forces prepared for the next assault, the Crone fleet was facing its own internal challenges. The disruption from Prometheus had caused a significant breakdown in their command structure. Zorak, the Crone commander, was furious and frustrated. "Report." Zorak's voice thundered through the command bridge. "What is the status of our offensive operations?" An officer stepped forward, looking nervous. "The communications interference has significantly impacted our ability to coordinate attacks. We're struggling to maintain control over our fleet. Additionally, the energy shield the humans deployed is proving to be a formidable obstacle." Zorak's eyes blazed with anger. "We cannot allow ourselves to be outmaneuvered by these humans. We need to find a way to neutralize their shield and restore our command structure. Deploy additional reconnaissance units to locate and destroy the Prometheus satellite." The Crones scrambled to regain control. Reconnaissance units were dispatched to track down the satellite, while engineers worked on countermeasures to bypass the energy shield. Despite their efforts, the humans had a head start, and the situation remained volatile. On Earth, the development of the second-generation energy shield, codenamed Athena, was progressing rapidly. Dr. Carter and her team worked around the clock, integrating advanced technologies to enhance the shield's performance. Athena was designed to be more resilient, with improved energy absorption and deflection capabilities. As the new shield neared completion, Reynolds and her command team continued to coordinate their offensive strategies. The goal was to capitalize on the Crone's disarray and apply continuous pressure. In a bold move, Reynolds ordered a coordinated assault on a key Crone supply depot. The operation aimed to disrupt the Crone's logistics and weaken their ability to sustain the offensive. The mission was a success, with the supply depot destroyed and critical resources lost to the Crone fleet. The Crone's frustration grew as they faced mounting losses and operational setbacks. The morale among their ranks was beginning to waver, and Zorak's leadership was increasingly questioned. The humans had managed to turn the tide of battle, but the Crones were not ready to concede defeat. As the conflict continued, Reynolds and her team prepared to deploy the Athena shield. The new shield was integrated into Earth's defensive network and activated in a series of test scenarios. The results were promising. Athena proved to be a significant improvement over the original shield, capable of withstanding even the most intense energy attacks. The battle was entering a critical phase. The Crones, determined to regain their advantage, were preparing a massive offensive operation. Earth's defenders braced for the confrontation, knowing that the outcome would have far-reaching consequences. In the command center, Reynolds addressed her team. "We've made great progress, but the real test is ahead. The Crones are regrouping and launching a major offensive. We need to be prepared for anything." Brooks and Carter nodded in agreement. The energy shield and the Prometheus satellite had given them a fighting chance, but it was clear that the Crones would not be easily defeated. The next phase of the battle would be decisive, and both sides were readying themselves for a confrontation that would determine the future of humanity and its place in the galaxy. The conflict was far from over, but humanity had proven its resilience and ingenuity. As the Crones prepared for their next move, Earth's defenders were poised to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to fight for their survival and secure their place in the stars. The crucial encounter. The stage was set for a decisive confrontation. Both the Crones and the humans knew that the upcoming battle would determine the fate of their conflict. Earth's forces had fortified their defenses with the new Athena shield and were prepared for the Crones' anticipated massive offensive. Admiral Reynolds paced the command center, her mind racing through the potential scenarios of the impending battle. The Athena shield was now fully operational, and the recent victories had boosted the morale of her troops. Despite these advantages, she remained cautious. The Crones were a formidable adversary, and underestimating them could be a grave mistake. Commander Brooks approached Reynolds with a grim expression. "We've intercepted Crone communications, suggesting a major offensive is imminent. Their fleet is mobilizing, and their targets seem to be our key defensive positions." Reynolds nodded, her face resolute. "We anticipated this. Our strategy will focus on countering their offensive and exploiting any weaknesses in their formation. We need to ensure that our defenses hold and that we maintain control of the battlefield." Dr. Carter, who had been overseeing the Athena shield's integration, joined the discussion. "The new shield will be crucial in withstanding the Crone's initial assault. However, we need to monitor its performance closely and be ready to adjust our tactics as needed." As Earth's forces prepared for the battle, the Crones were also finalizing their plans. Zorak, the Crone commander, was determined to break the stalemate. His fleet was mobilizing for an all-out assault on Earth's defensive positions, and he was confident that this would be the turning point in the conflict. The Crone fleet, a massive armada of warships and assault carriers, moved toward Earth with formidable firepower. Zorak's plan was to launch a coordinated attack on multiple fronts, aiming to overwhelm Earth's defenses and create a breach in their shield. The battle began with a fierce exchange of fire as the Crones launched their assault. Waves of energy blasts and missiles rained down on Earth's defensive positions, testing the strength of the Athena shield. The shield held firm, absorbing and deflecting the energy attacks, but the strain was evident. Admiral Reynolds and her team watched the battle unfold from the command center. The Crone offensive was intense, but the Athena shield was performing as expected. The initial wave of attacks was repelled, and Earth's forces began to mount a counter-offensive. "Engage all available forces," Reynolds ordered. "We need to push back and prevent the Crones from gaining any ground. Focus on their lead ships and disrupt their formation." Earth's fleet moved into action, launching a series of coordinated counterattacks. The space around Earth erupted in a chaotic display of energy beams and explosions as the two sides clashed. The Crones were relentless, but Earth's defenders were equally determined to hold their ground. In the midst of the battle, a breakthrough occurred. A reconnaissance unit identified a critical vulnerability in the Crone formation, a gap in their shield network that could be exploited. Reynolds quickly formulated a plan to take advantage of this weakness. Deploy a strike force to target the Crone shield generators, Reynolds instructed. We need to disable their shields and create an opening for a decisive counterattack. The strike force, composed of elite pilots and advanced fighters, was dispatched to the Crone fleet's rear. They navigated through the chaos of the battle and targeted the shield generators with precision. The operation was risky, but it had the potential to turn the tide of the conflict. The strike force successfully breached the Crone shield generators, causing a significant disruption in the Crone fleet's defenses. The gap in the shields allowed Earth's forces to launch a concentrated assault on the now vulnerable Crone ships. The battle shifted in favor of the humans. With the Crone shields compromised, Earth's fleet pressed their advantage, targeting key Crone vessels and disrupting their command structure. The Crone forces, now struggling to regroup, faced mounting losses and dwindling morale. Zorak, watching from his command ship, realized the situation was slipping out of control. The humans had exploited their vulnerability and turned the battle in their favor. Desperation fueled his orders as he attempted to salvage the situation. Reinforce our defensive positions and launch a full retreat if necessary, Zorak commanded. We cannot afford further losses. Despite the Crone's efforts to stabilize their position, the damage had been done. Earth's forces continued their assault, pushing the Crones back and securing a critical victory. The battle was intense and costly, but humanity had demonstrated its resilience and strategic prowess. As the dust settled and the Crone fleet retreated, Admiral Reynolds and her team assessed the aftermath. The victory was significant, but the cost had been high. Earth's forces had managed to hold their ground and turn the tide of the conflict, but the war was far from over. Reynolds addressed her team with a sense of determination. We've achieved a crucial victory today, but we must remain vigilant. The Crones will regroup and adapt. Our fight for survival continues. Dr. Carter and Commander Brooks nodded in agreement. The battle had proven humanity's strength and ingenuity, but the future remained uncertain. The Crones were a formidable enemy, and the conflict was far from over. As the team prepared for the next phase of the war, the resolve of Earth's defenders was unwavering. They had proven that they could withstand the Crone offensive and seize the initiative, but the struggle for survival in the stars would continue. The conflict had reached a critical juncture, and both sides were preparing for the next chapter in their battle for dominance. The stakes were high, and the outcome would determine the future of humanity and its place in the galaxy. The turning point. The aftermath of the battle marked a pivotal moment in the conflict between Earth and the Crones. The victory had bolstered humanity's morale, but the war was far from over. Both sides were regrouping and strategizing for the next phase of their struggle. On Earth, Admiral Reynolds and her team were deeply immersed in assessing the consequences of their recent success. The Athena shield had proven its worth, but there were still many unknowns and challenges ahead. Reynolds convened a strategy meeting with Dr. Carter, Commander Brooks, and other key personnel to plan their next steps. Today's victory has given us a significant advantage, Reynolds began, her voice steady. But we need to build on this momentum. The Crones will not take this defeat lightly. We need to anticipate their next moves and prepare accordingly. Dr. Carter reviewed the data from the recent battle, noting the Crones' reactions and adjustments. Our strike against their shield generators was effective, but the Crones will likely adapt their strategies. We should expect them to reinforce their defenses and develop countermeasures. Commander Brooks added, "We've also seen signs of a potential alliance between different factions within the Crone fleet. If they manage to unite their forces, it could pose a serious threat to our operations." Reynolds nodded in agreement. We need to strengthen our own alliances and ensure that our forces are prepared for any eventuality. It's crucial that we maintain our advantage and keep the Crones on the defensive. The strategy meeting concluded with a clear plan of action. Earth's forces would focus on fortifying their defensive positions, enhancing their intelligence capabilities, and continuing to exploit any weaknesses in the Crone fleet. At the same time, diplomatic efforts would be intensified to seek support from other factions and potential allies. As Earth's defenders worked to implement their new strategy, the Crones were also adjusting their approach. Zorak, reeling from the defeat, convened a high-level meeting with his senior commanders to assess the situation and plan their counteroffensive. We underestimated the humans' resolve and capabilities, Zorak acknowledged. Their recent victory has shifted the balance of power. We need to regroup and devise a plan that will counter their advantage and restore our dominance. The Crones began to mobilize their forces for a renewed offensive. They worked to repair and reinforce their damaged fleet, develop new technologies, and strengthen their alliances with other Crone factions. The Crone leadership was determined to regain the upper hand and resume their push against humanity. In the midst of these preparations, a new opportunity emerged for Earth's forces. A group of diplomats and negotiators from an independent alien faction known as the Xelorians approached Earth with a proposal for an alliance. The Xelorians had observed the conflict and were interested in supporting Earth in exchange for future collaboration on mutual interests. Admiral Reynolds, recognizing the potential benefits of this alliance, agreed to meet with its Xelorian representatives. The negotiations were tense but productive, with both sides discussing terms of cooperation and strategic support. The Xelorians offered advanced technology and intelligence capabilities that could significantly enhance Earth's defensive and offensive operations. The alliance with the Xelorians marked a significant development in the conflict. Earth's forces gained access to new technologies and resources, which would bolster their ability to counter the Crones' renewed offensive. The partnership also provided valuable intelligence on Crone tactics and capabilities, giving humanity a clearer understanding of their adversaries. As the Crones prepared for their counteroffensive, Earth's forces were bolstered by the new alliance. The combined strength of human ingenuity and Xelorian technology created a formidable defense against the Crone threat. The stage was set for a new phase in the conflict. Both sides were poised for a decisive confrontation that would determine the future of their struggle. The Crones were determined to reclaim their lost ground, while Earth's defenders were prepared to leverage their newfound alliances and resources to maintain their advantage. The battle for dominance in the galaxy was reaching a critical juncture. Each side was preparing for the next confrontation, knowing that the outcome would shape the future of their conflict. The war was far from over, and both Earth and the Crones were committed to securing their place in the stars. As the conflict continued, the resolve and determination of both sides would be tested. The struggle for survival and supremacy in the galaxy would drive their actions and shape the course of their battle. The turning point had arrived, and the future of the war hung in the balance. The clash of titans. With the new alliance formed between Earth and the Xelorians, both sides readied themselves for the impending clash. The Crones, having regrouped and reinforced their positions, prepared to launch a decisive offensive to reclaim lost ground. The stakes were higher than ever, and both Earth and the Crones knew that this battle could turn the tide of the war. The Crone Command Center buzzed with activity as Zorak and his senior commanders finalized their plans. The Crones had identified a crucial target, a key Earth outpost that housed advanced defensive systems and crucial supplies. If they could capture or destroy this outpost, it would deal a severe blow to Earth's defenses and potentially force a strategic retreat. Zorak addressed his commanders with a fierce determination. This outpost is vital to the humans' operations. If we strike it decisively, we can weaken their front line and open the way for further advances. We must coordinate our attack carefully and overwhelm them before they can react. The Crones launched their offensive under the cover of darkness, using a combination of stealth technology and coordinated strikes. The assault was swift and brutal, targeting the outpost's key defenses and infrastructure. Earth's forces, though well prepared, were caught off guard by the ferocity and speed of the Crone attack. Meanwhile, Admiral Reynolds and her team were on high alert, monitoring the situation closely. The Silurian technology had provided valuable insights into Crone tactics, but the suddenness of the attack left little time for a full response. Reynolds mobilized her forces to counter the assault and protect the outpost. The battle that ensued was fierce and chaotic. The outpost's defensive systems struggled to cope with the intensity of the Crone onslaught. Human and Silurian troops fought valiantly to repel the attackers, but the Crone's sheer numbers and tactical superiority began to overwhelm their defenses. In the heat of the battle, Reynolds and her command team made a critical decision. They ordered a strategic withdrawal to preserve their forces and prevent further losses. The outpost was temporarily abandoned, but the Earth forces and their Silurian allies managed to retreat in an organized manner, minimizing casualties and preserving their core capabilities. The Crones, having achieved their initial objectives, began to consolidate their gains and prepare for their next move. Zorak was determined to press the advantage and push further into Earth-controlled territory. However, the retreating Earth forces were not idle. They regrouped and reinforced their positions, readying themselves for a counteroffensive. In the aftermath of the battle, both sides assessed the results and planned their next steps. The Crones had scored a tactical victory, but the cost of their assault had been significant. Their forces were stretched thin, and the loss of some key units had weakened their overall strength. On the other hand, Earth's forces, though temporarily pushed back, had demonstrated their resilience and adaptability. The withdrawal had allowed them to preserve their strength and prepare for a counterattack. The Silurians, having witnessed the battle firsthand, were even more committed to supporting their new allies and providing additional resources and intelligence. The conflict had reached a critical juncture. Both sides were poised for a new confrontation, with the balance of power shifting as they prepare for the next phase of the war. The Crones sought to capitalize on their recent victory, while Earth and the Silurians aimed to regroup, reinforce, and mount a decisive counteroffensive. The stage was set for a climactic clash that would determine the outcome of their struggle. The battle for dominance in the galaxy was far from over, and the resolve and determination of both sides would be tested as they faced off in a high-stakes showdown. With the future of the conflict hanging in the balance, the next phase of the war promised to be a defining moment in their struggle for survival and supremacy. The clash of titans was imminent, and the outcome would shape the destiny of both Earth and the Crones. The dawn of unity. As the conflict reached its zenith, both Earth and the Crones prepared for the decisive confrontation that would determine their future. The war had ravaged their forces, tested their resolve, and driven them to the brink of exhaustion. Yet, amid the chaos and destruction, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. In the aftermath of the recent battles, Earth and the Silurians had taken stock of their situation and made a crucial decision: to push for a final decisive confrontation with the Crones. They knew that only by uniting their strengths and launching a coordinated offensive could they hope to end the conflict and secure a lasting peace. Admiral Reynolds, reflecting on the recent battles, gathered her senior officers and Silurian allies for a strategic briefing. The atmosphere was tense, but there was also a palpable sense of determination and unity. "We faced tremendous challenges," Reynolds began, her voice steady and resolute. "But our alliance has proven its strength and resilience. We have an opportunity to end this war on our terms, but it requires all of us working together with everything we've got." The Silurians, equally committed to the cause, pledged their full support. Their advanced technology and tactical expertise would be crucial in executing the final offensive. With their combined forces, Earth and the Silurians devised a comprehensive strategy to strike at the heart of Crone territory and force a resolution to the conflict. As preparations for the final assault began, both sides braced for the ultimate showdown. The Chromes, still emboldened by their recent victories, anticipated a fierce resistance. Zorak, determined to press his advantage, marshaled his forces for what he believed would be a decisive engagement. The final battle was set to take place on a strategically significant world, a planet that held immense value for both sides. The Chrones had fortified their positions, turning it into a heavily defended stronghold. Earth and its Alorians, meanwhile, assembled their combined fleets and ground forces for an all-out assault. As the battle commenced, it quickly became evident that the coordination and unity between Earth and its Alorians were paying off. The combined forces executed their strategy with precision, overwhelming the Chrone defenses and pushing deep into their territory. The battle was intense, with both sides fighting fiercely for control of the planet. The tide of the battle shifted as the Earth-Silurian alliance demonstrated their superior tactics and determination. The Chrones, despite their best efforts, struggled to hold their ground against the relentless assault. The decisive confrontation saw a series of key victories for the alliance, gradually turning the battle in their favor. In the midst of the chaos, Zorak realized that the conflict was reaching its end. The strength and unity of the Earth and Silurian forces were undeniable, and the prospect of a protracted war with no clear victory was becoming increasingly untenable. Faced with this reality, Zorak made a momentous decision. In a dramatic turn of events, Zorak and his senior commanders initiated peace negotiations. The Chrones, recognizing the futility of continued conflict, sought to explore a diplomatic resolution. The Earth-Silurian alliance, though wary, agreed to engage in talks, driven by the desire to end the war and secure a lasting peace. The negotiations were intense and challenging, but both sides were motivated by the desire to avoid further bloodshed. They worked through their differences, addressing key issues and finding common ground. The discussions were facilitated by representatives from both Earth and its Silurians, with the aim of establishing a framework for peace. After days of negotiations, an agreement was reached. The Chrones, Earth, and its Silurians signed a historic peace treaty that ended the conflict and established terms for future cooperation and coexistence. The treaty addressed key concerns and laid the foundation for rebuilding and forging a new era of collaboration between the species. The signing of the peace treaty marked a profound turning point. The war was over, and the galaxy began the process of healing and reconstruction. The alliance between Earth and its Silurians, strengthened by their shared experiences and mutual respect, became a cornerstone of a new era of interstellar cooperation. As the dust settled and the first rays of peace began to emerge, both Earth and its Silurians looked forward to a future where they could build on their newfound unity. The legacy of the conflict served as a reminder of the cost of war and the value of collaboration. The galaxy, once torn by strife, now stood on the brink of a promising new chapter. The final part of the story concluded with a sense of hope and renewal. The struggle had been long and arduous, but the resilience, ingenuity, and unity of the involved forces had paved the way for a brighter future. The dawn of unity had arrived, and with it, the promise of a new era of peace and cooperation among the stars.